Nex-Tech. I want to welcome everybody to Tech Talk, and we're excited to have our partner Vineet Gupta with Western Digital on the call today with us as our expert on the call. He and Steve will discuss the increasing need for digital storage. To remind everybody that if you have any questions, please enter them in the panel on the right of your screen, and we will answer everything at the end and stay as long as anybody needs us. At the end of the presentation is when we will do all of the questions. With that, I'll let Steve take it over. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you, Tricia. And like she said, we do have some good guests this morning, and I was hoping Vineet could introduce himself and then a little bit about Western Digital, some stuff that you may not have known about this company that's probably hiding somewhere in the devices that you're using today. So Vineet?
Good morning, everyone, and Steve and Tricia, thanks for having us here. A little bit about myself. I'm a senior product manager with Western Digital, particularly in the SMB storage solutions division. I've been with the company for about 2 years and been in the industry for about 10 plus years now. About Western Digital, we've been in business, believe it or not, for 42 plus years. Primarily, we've been known for our hard drives that you probably may or may not see in your computers, servers, laptops that you use today. But we are the market share leader today in storage. We are headquartered in Irvine, California now, and as of last year, we are being operated as 2 independent subsidiaries. WD acquired GST Hitachi Global Storage Technologies last year, and that acquisition closed last year. As I mentioned, we've been in business for a really long time, 42 plus years, and that gives us a really deep history and expertise in the storage industry. Combined headcount in terms of employees, we have 100,000 plus employees worldwide. As you can see, very, very rich balance sheet and overall very, very healthy business that WD operates. So we are really, really proud of some of the achievements that we've had in the business and, continuing to grow.
All right, excellent. And, I noticed, Vineet, that Tricia and I were talking before the call that Western Digital is really starting to become a little bit more of a public name that people are seeing with some of their retail stuff that's out there on the market. We've seen some advertisements more lately that people might have seen, but today we're going to talk a little bit about more from a standpoint of the business product line, not the retail product line, and how it impacts our customers. But more specifically, I know that we are seeing our customers grow their data requirements pretty substantially, and it seems to me, and Vineet, you can chime in here in a minute, that the number of required storage is going up, not only for business. I mean, you notice it personally that, currently I think I'm maintaining a little over a terabyte worth of storage at home. And so at business, I think, I'm seeing just a astronomical growth in the requirements that we're having, on storage and not only just from the products that we're producing today, both the Word documents and the marketing documents, all the things that we do here, but we're also seeing just a substantial growth in requirements from the standpoint that the compliancy, keeping records for sometimes 7 years, being able to reference things that happened many years ago because I may want to redo documents that I had from, 10 years ago and those kind of things. So it's going up quite a bit. We're just seeing a pretty big growth on that. Is that what you're seeing across the industry, Vineet? And are you seeing that growth just across all industries across the country?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I would rather actually take it further that we're seeing that kind of growth across the globe, even though the rate of growth may vary by region. But, I think at a high level, what's driving this growth is really the mass adoption of our IT equipment and IT systems. So if you just sort of scroll back a little bit in terms of history and time, 20 years ago, we probably would see few computers at some businesses and, very rarely at houses and whatnot 20, 25 years ago. so to speak, right? Now, typically, as an example, in my house, both my wife and I have our own personal computers, which is not very uncommon right now. Similarly, at work, all of us have our own dedicated computers, at times more than one, right? And that's why all the work that used to happen in a manual mode, paper and paper manual records, is all becoming digital, right? And obviously, internet is powering a lot of that as well. So the data is really growing at an astronomical rate, as you mentioned, and more importantly, the protection of data and that management of that data, particularly the unstructured data, as we say, is becoming really critical. And just like businesses today buy insurances today for like employees or for their physical equipment, premises, whatnot, I would argue that the whole data protection is really that insurance for your data, which in some instances is far more important and vital than really insuring your physical goods, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing that I'm starting to see, and I want to touch on this as a little bit of a cross-section, and I apologize, I didn't even front-end you on this for a little bit, Vineet, but one of the things that we're seeing from our end is not all drives are created equal, not all products are created equal, and we're seeing a lot of our customers back up their data to USB drives or different low-cost solutions that might be purchased at, discount electronic stores. And what we're seeing is that, those might be fine to put your pictures on when you plug that drive in, once every month and you back up your data at home. But when you're backing up to this technology, almost 24/7 anymore, and you're highly, using these drives, you have to go to a better quality device with a little bit more protection, both that making sure you're not putting it on one spindle, but you're putting it across multiple spindles. And we'll talk a little bit more specifics about that when we get to some of the products here. But and I apologize, Nick, for not front-ending you on this. Are you seeing that, some failure rates on some lower quality products, not Western Digital, of course, but some other products that people might buy at the Best Buys or the Walmarts, and high failure rates on that stuff?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say high failure rates as such, and I wouldn't be able to comment much about products in general because we really don't get to see data from the competitors as this. But ultimately, I would like to make a comment that these products, just like any other machinery equipment that we use, are mechanical and electronic components, right? All of them come with a certain degree of failure rate. Now, having said that, just like we would not put all our eggs in one basket, whether putting all the money in one stock and whatnot. So, I mean, same analogy can be used for data as well. Now, given that the products you talked about, USB, passport drives, or like individual desktop drives that you attach to a single computer. Now, those kind of approaches work to a certain extent, but the more you talk about in a business use where the need really is to collaborate and share that data and also protect that data, those kind of devices do not really scale out as much as far as the business use cases are concerned. And as you mentioned, for a home use or even for an individual in a business environment perspective, where they just want to protect certain files and take a backup of certain files, say a salesperson wants to keep certain presentations on a passport or a USB drive, that part of it obviously works, and those products, in fact, are meant for those kind of use cases. But in general, if you want to protect data on multiple computers in a business and also be able to share that data within the business, obviously, the capabilities of those products fall short in those cases.
Great. And, an example that I had was I was dealing with a customer that was working on a rather large spreadsheet with a bunch of data in it, and I'm talking about, hundreds of hours invested in this, and they were actually running it locally on a USB flash drive. We're talking about one of these, that if you came to me and said, hey, can I have a flash drive, I'd give you one with the Nex-Tech logo on it. And what ended up happening was, either a static electricity failure or the drive failed, and they lost hundreds of hours of data input on this flash drive. because they were not, backing it up to a more solid device. And I think we're going to see more and more of that as the data grows, the number of hours we invest in our data grows, and people aren't backing it up. So kind of pushing
definitely,
forward.
Steve, just a little bit commenting on that. Interestingly that you brought out, so Intel is a partner of ours, and Intel published this report recently. And one of the most striking comment in that, or the statistic in that report was actually two. Number one is that it takes about $7,500 worth of effort and manpower to input 5 megabytes of data if you were to lose that data completely. And I think that's a really, really expensive cost. Number two is that businesses who lose their data to disaster, let's say, and they are not able to recover, according to Intel, 70% of those businesses will basically go out of business in about a year's time. And I thought that was really, really scary in a sense, given that we see that about only 30% businesses worldwide are protecting their data in some form or the other. And to make the matters worse, not all of those 30% are doing it in a comprehensive, complete disaster protection way.
Yeah, those are absolutely valid points, and it realistically means that some of these drives are holding hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of data. We just don't think about it that way until it's maybe too late.
Yeah.
So I put a pizza box on here, and if you look really closely, that's actually a server. And the reason that I put this up here is one of the things that Vinny and I were talking about earlier today was the fact that we call these little smaller pizza box servers, we call them pizza box servers. They're just kind of a 1U high kind of a term. It sits in the rack. It's really nice. And the thing that we're seeing across the industry is that one of these pizza box servers now, and it's not literally a pizza box, but this is just kind of a joke on that, but one of these servers now has enough processing capacity for most, not all, but for a lot of our customers. I mean, they have up to 8+ cores of processing with, 64 gig of RAM on board. But of course, the limitation of these devices is storage. And storage can be expensive when you start putting in racks and racks of hard drives from the major manufacturers of, of servers like HP, Dell, and, Lenovo and IBM and these guys. And of course, the nice thing is with all this processing power, the thing that's not scaling is the data storage. And that's what we want to talk about today, is really moving that storage, the archiving and the storage off of these type of servers, whether it be a pizza box server or your regular tower-like server, and moving it into more of a NAS environment. And I did put a picture of one in here, and we'll talk a little bit more about this device. But the question that I had for Vineet that always confuses me, even to this day, is we throw around these terms of NAS and SAN and SATA kind of conversions of these, and fiber channel, and all these different things. And so I know that NAS stands for Network Attached Storage, and I know that SAN stands for Storage Attached, or Server. I apologize. Vineet, what's that stand for again?
Storage Array Network.
Yes, thank you. So my question is, what in the world is the difference between these two? What should my customers be looking for, and what's the advantages of one over the other? And is this a cost play? Is this a performance play? Can you give us a little background on that?
Definitely. So I think let's start with storage in general. Obviously, all of our computers have hard drives. Now, for the last 10, 15 years or so, the more personal form of storage, which you see in form of USB drives, have become more popular, and you are able to just sort of get and physically hold a drive and have that sense of carrying my data in my hand type of a feeling. Now, if you take that one level up in a business environment, you have various users in a business and various computers in a business, and ultimately there has to be a common thread. Now, typically in a business, that common thread that connects each of those computers and users in effect is a network, right? Now because each of those computers are connected to the same network in the office. Now, it just makes sense then to have a common storage also connected to the same common thread, which is the network, right? Now, typically or historically, it used to be that you would have one or the other computer which would be dedicated as, hey, let's just store all the files onto this computer and make that data available or share that data across different users in an organization. Now, having said that, that was the very rudimentary approach. Now, since then, the technology has advanced to a point where the specific dedicated network-attached storage devices have become more sophisticated and more powerful and more affordable, so to speak, at the same time very easy to use for small businesses in general. Typically, the large businesses would use network-attached storage or NAS products from NetApp, but those are really expensive products. At times, they could scale all the way 50,000 or more US dollars. But the product that you see here is called WD Sentinel DX4000 from Western Digital, and you can see it can hold up to 4 drives, and we can talk a little bit more about it, that how it's used and how it makes a life easy for a small business owner, or for that matter, IT partner serving those small businesses. But this particular product, and it's a toaster-sized product actually, if you haven't really seen one. This particular product can hold 16 terabytes of raw data today, and give you all that protection in terms of dual power, dual network redundancy in terms of RAID, having your data sort of span over multiple drives, as well as give you some nifty capabilities such as sharing that data either in the network or outside the network with built-in remote access. Or if you have some need for sharing data or extending storage on your application servers or some of the other servers in your business, it provides you iSCSI type of capabilities. But at the same time, it has a built-in backup server, which allows you to back up to 25 workstations within your business itself. Now, that's just basically me talking about my product, but at the same time, it just kind of gives you an idea of how far the technology has come over the last several years, where this little device can serve so many purposes, right? And network-attached storage in general is just a storage that is connected to the network, is available to everyone in terms of access. Now, talking about SAN, SAN essentially has various types of uses. Ultimately, SAN is a more enterprise type of a device, which gives you sort of think of it as a huge closet with different shelves, right? And you can sort of carve out storage and carve out a piece of storage and dedicate that to your specific servers, specific devices, as the need may be. Now, SAN technology, again, is in its true sense a more enterprise-like technology, and has been very somewhat out of reach of small businesses. But with advances in technology, with iSCSI, protocol like iSCSI, which means SAN over Ethernet protocol or SAN over IP networks, it has become more and more reachable for small businesses to be able to leverage these kind of technologies. And as an example, WD Sentinel is fully capable of providing iSCSI SAN to small businesses.
And just so we kind of get a little bit of a baseline, I mean, you talked about some of those enterprise solutions being $50,000. I mean, we can get into different versions of these Sentinels for less than $1,000, and sometimes substantially less, depending on total number of storage and that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
So that's definitely a value here on this, and I think you did a good job. But some of the things that I want to talk about is that you a little bit mentioned here. I'm going to kind of start at the bottom, but a couple of the things is you mentioned dual power, which correct me if I'm wrong, just means that I can plug this into 2 different power ports, and that way, if one of the power supplies fails on this unit, I'm not down as a customer. I may need to, it'll alert me, I assume, in some form or fashion, so that I know that the hardware is down one power supply and I need to get my warranty engaged to get that unit repaired or that power supply replaced. Is that how that works?
That is absolutely correct. So WD Sentinel was designed with the premise that small businesses ultimately want to treat their IT like their cars, right? As long as it's running and they don't need to open the hood, they're golden, right? And that is why WD Sentinel offers several level of data protection, including hardware protection as well as software protection. So dual power that you mentioned is one of those examples where you don't need two powers to run the product, but it's available as an option to provide that redundancy in case one power supply were to fail or one power adapter were to fail. The other one will keep it up and running, but absolutely right that you have an option to configure email alerts where you are able to get an alert or you are able to see an alert onto the dashboard and tell that one power supply has failed.
Okay, excellent. And one of the things that we're kind of, we haven't really mentioned on this is, we talk about this being a NAS, but it is, but it's actually running Server 2008 in the background, Storage Server 2008 in the background. Is that right?
That is correct, yes.
And
so the specific operating system we are using is called Windows Storage Server 2008 R2 Essentials. It's built on the Windows Server 2008 R2 platform, which most of businesses today use as their server platform. And being a Windows offering, it kind of integrates really, really well within a small business environment.
And then would one of the can I control who has access to this device based on credentials, or how do I control so that the the CFO of the company has access to maybe very critical documents along with the president, but then maybe a CSR that works my front desk or something cannot get to that data? How is all that controlled?
So, Steve, I think one of the easiest way to describe it is that if you look at this screen, the resolution is not that great, but essentially this dashboard is the screen where even a person with not so much technical capabilities can just manage that whole thing. Now, from the screen, there is a user tab, the second one on that dashboard, where you can control granularly which particular shared folder, which user gets access to what particular shared folder and at what level of access, right? So it could be all the way from no access, such that my data entry person does not get to see this critical stuff or strategic stuff, but this other manager can just see it in a read-only mode but not make any modifications, right? But at the same time, the CFO, being the owner of that content, gets to both read and write, which means that also have modification rights to that data. And so on and so forth. You can have granular control to several aspects and several resources within the server to that level.
Excellent. So I really have granularity down to each individual user. And I'm not a terribly technical guy. I've definitely set one of these up and spent some time with it. But it took a matter of minutes to really identify how to do this, and it was pretty simple. So I know it's really easy from that standpoint. And one of the other things that I noticed that was a bullet point on here is this built-in remote web access, or remote access to data from any device anywhere. That seems to be huge with most of our customers. Can you give us a little bit more detail on that particular line?
Definitely. So, I think one of the things everyone will agree with today is that we are no longer a co-located workforce, right? We are more and more increasingly becoming a mobile workforce where, I, as a small business owner, may be traveling and making a presentation about my business to a prospective client. Or I may have hired a contractor which actually lives in a different city but needs access to the same business data. Now, one of the challenges historically has been that the data has been, while available to the co-located offices or co-located employees, the remote employees have often suffered from the lack of access. And in general, they end up, say, having an incorrect version of the sales presentation, right? So they have no way to get back to that single source of truth. Now, WD Sentinel has a built-in remote web access in the sense that the small business owners have an option to configure remote web access, secured remote web access back to their device from anywhere, such that once I configure it, it automatically tries to configure my router for the secure settings. I will be given an option to choose a personalized domain. So as an example, my remote web access domain could look like gupta.remotewebaccess.com, or we have another one as a demo unit, wdsentinel.remotewebaccess.com. Or if you have your own website or domain that you want to take advantage of, let's say Nex-Tech.com, and you want to call it server.nextech.com, you could choose to do that as well. Now, it gives you a friendly username and password, and once you configure that, the same user credentials that you create for the users to access data locally are valid online as well. So you would log in online, and the users will see exactly the same things that they would have access to as they were local, whether it's data, whether it's the media, or whether it's back to their computers.
Excellent. That seems really simple and something that most of my customers would like to have, even if they don't work a ton remotely. They might have needs, if nothing else, just for the ownership of the company to access documents from home. If things like in Kansas, we get bad weather, and call it what you will, you just work from home just as well as you could potentially from the office. So that sounds really solid.
Definitely.
Now, you had given me some of the details here, and this is your graphic, and I was wondering if you could kind of walk us through this from understandings.
Certainly. So I think what I really wanted to highlight with this graphic is that WD Sentinel ultimately is one device which is addressing several different needs in a small business. So on the top left, on the top right, if you see, there is the notion of local users, right? And the local users, again, because WD Sentinel sits in that local network in the business, local users have access in terms of getting shared data access over these different protocols if you care about them. But ultimately, it's such a rich access that no matter if you have a Windows PC, if you have a Mac computer or whatnot, you can access your data that is sitting on that WD Sentinel. At the same time, WD Sentinel being an integrated backup server, it is going to back up all those local computers, up to 25 of them, automatically in the office, right? Now, on the opposite side, when you see remote users have opportunity to get access to the data no matter where they are, right? So even using a web browser on my iPhone or any other mobile device, I can still access my data. And at the bottom, what you see is iSCSI target capabilities with, be it some of my application servers, either it's my virtualization like VMware or Citrix, Zen Server, Hyper-V, or my databases. Either of those can take advantage of iSCSI capabilities, iSCSI target capabilities, and really get that fast, secure, and protected storage out of WD Sentinel. And they rather than having a protected storage in one of their own servers, they can carve out storage out of Sentinel and start using it, which is, far more affordable way to go.
Excellent. Now, kind of one of my last questions for you is, as a small business, I'm continually growing and continually adding new applications which require more and more storage. So I buy one of these units, say, and down the road, let's just say I max this thing out, and now I need more storage. Can I just buy a second one of these and stack them? And does that work pretty well, or how do you recommend that once I would say get past my 16 terabytes and I need to go to 32, how do I migrate to that?
So WD Sentinel today, the way it's designed, it's kind of designed to operate as a standalone, or at least like as an individual device. Unfortunately, right now, this particular product does not give you that stacking capabilities. Definitely, you can add more devices and supplement storage, but it won't really work in that unison, if you know what I mean, like as a scale out NAS. However, a lot of our customers, the way they are taking advantage of that is that they have some specific needs. So as an example, one of my customers in Canada had about 100 users, and their use case was, hey, I want to back up each of those users' laptop, and I also want to give them a home directory, which is coming out of a central device rather than just having a home directory on their local computers. So with 100 users, and Sentinel has this built-in limit of 25 users, what they ended up doing is buying 4 different Sentinel devices and creating, joining it to the Active Directory and creating that security group of 25 users each. And that's how they were able to creatively just map one Sentinel to a group of 25 users and so on and so forth.
And then if they added another 25 users, we can just add another box, and away we go.
Precisely. Precisely.
Okay. Excellent. Well, I want to forewarn Tricia that unless Vineet has any additional stuff to bring to us, do you want to start taking some questions?
Yes,
I think just a couple of things I want to add is that WD Sentinel really is, out of the factory, it is an integrated NAS, SAN, and a backup server. However, because we are using a Windows-based storage server, typically the capabilities can extend way beyond the product, right? So as you know very well, you were able to install, or Nex-Tech was able to install StorageCraft onto Sentinel and really help some of your customer base with that sort of total solution as well. The only reason WD Sentinel was able to do so is because it's based on Windows technology, right? And that gives you that paramount flexibility and scalability with the system. At the same time, with Active Directory and being a Windows-based solution, it is in fact giving you that seamless integration between your client computers and this storage device. So that is something that we see a lot in the industry, where customers say, hey, I got this NAS, but it doesn't really integrate well with my systems, or it doesn't really work well with my Active Directory. And those issues are not there with WD Sentinel, because it's using a Windows-based system, and the integration is quite interesting.
Well, and we didn't really talk about it, but there is a multi-core processor on this, and this box does have RAM. So it is, in some small way, a little bit of a server from a standpoint. It has a processor, it has RAM, it is running an operating system. And so it's definitely more flexible than any of the other solutions that we kind of vetted here at Nex-Tech when we were looking for the solution that we're looking for backup and recovery. And we didn't really talk a lot about the details. We've talked about it before in some of our tech talks, but we have the ability to then take some of this information and put it into either the public cloud or the Nex-Tech private cloud, whatever the customer is more capable, or wanting to see their data at. But we just kind of scratched the surface on what the capabilities of the box is for sure.
Right. And Steve, just for all the participants, there is a lot of information on our website, and in fact, you see my email and phone number. So feel free to, I think email is the best way to get in touch with me. So if you have any questions, please reach out to Steve or myself on the question via email, and definitely be able to help out with answers.
And with that, Tricia can take some questions right now.
Yes, we do have a couple, but I wanted to let everybody know while you're thinking of your questions and entering them on your questions pane that we do have another webinar coming up in 1 week on March 27th. That's the fastest 16 minutes in technology, and we're going to be discussing in only 16 minutes what exactly is a cloud-based phone. So it's going to be, excuse me, quick and hit some points and just be very interesting. And to register for that, you can go online to nextech.com/free webinar, and that's nex-tech.com to register. And we'll also have today's webinar, the recorded version of it, archived out there in approximately 24 hours or so. So a couple of questions. Here's the first one. Is there a way to automatically sync data between two of these devices, such as a nightly backup, from within the dashboard?
So that capability does not exist in the dashboard as such. However, a lot of our customers are using DFSR, which is distributed file systems in a replicated mode, to do that, or they're using some of the third-party solutions to make that happen. Some of the customers, for example, are using rsync over a VPN tunnel to be able to do that via one device to the other, but not from the dashboard.
And from a Nex-Tech standpoint, we are doing it with multiple customers ourselves using third-party software. Our technicians kind of help design that solution because there's a lot of questions that kind of get asked when we start doing that. Like, for instance, if it's on the same LAN, that simplifies things a little bit from a standpoint that we might have a little bit bigger pipe. But if it's across some kind of a connection, we typically want to make sure that we're involved with the whole piece of that, because we don't want to be syncing those devices throughout the day and saturating your whole connection with just these backups between those, so we can throttle that bandwidth, control what's happening, maybe put it after hours, those kind of things. And we definitely set that up, and we can help you set that up if that's something you're interested in.
Okay, that answers that one. The next question is, can it be set up that the NAS storage is accessed through one of the network ports and the IS-CSI on the other network port?
Definitely. So by default, and I think that's a good point, by default the two network ports are configured in a adaptive failover mode, which is, in a simple sense, just like the power, if you have both Ethernet cables connected onto the ports in the back of the unit, if one were to fail, the other one will keep the system connected to the network, right? But if you go into the remote desktop of this unit and look at the network properties, you are able to configure the network ports individually, and as you said, yes, you can dedicate one to the NAS traffic, if you will, and another one for the iSCSI traffic.
Okay, thank you. Yes, thank you. I had one other person who had their hand raised. Louise, I can unmute your phone if you had if you have a question or something on there. I went ahead and unmuted your phone, Louise, if you'd like to ask a question. Maybe not. Okay, we'll go ahead and close it up then. That's the only two questions that we had today. So unless there's anything else from Steve or Vineet, I'll go ahead and end this webinar, and thank you all very much for attending. Bye.
Thanks a lot.